at 33777. Get the live stream, the show notes, the podcast, and a lot more. I want to spend some time here with you out of the gate. Just the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the situation. Just the facts, if I can. It is becoming apparent that the President of the United States made the decision days and days ago to drop the bunker busters on Iran. The Israelis played their hand extremely smart. We have to understand the Israeli attack on Iran before we even get to the president dropping bombs. Israel started eliminating Iran's capacity to make war. They began to destroy the surrounding areas of the three major nuclear facilities. They eliminated Iran's senior military leadership twice. Israel apparently hacked into the Iranian phone system, summoned the major Iranian leaders to a meeting, and then blew up the facility. What has not gotten a lot of attention is that Israel then lured the second chain of command to a mountain bunker that the Israelis allegedly did not know about. Masquerading as Iranian agents, lured the new senior leaders to a bunker in the mountains and then blew that up. The Israeli intelligence and military coordination has been impressive. Then it became obvious that Israel had done all it could do. It could not get into Fort Ord without sending manpower. It did not have missiles capable of penetrating that far down, but Donald Trump did. The United States is the only nation on the planet with bunker buster capacities. So Donald Trump got involved in the planning. And if you read the Wall Street Journal account or the New York Times account, one of the things that locked Donald Trump in on this situation was the impressiveness of what Israel was able to do. He became deeply impressed, and then Benjamin Netanyahu started giving Donald Trump a lot of credit. On top of that, there was something else in the air. Taco. The Democrats had been needling Donald Trump for weeks over tariffs that Trump always chickens out. Caitlin Collins of CNN confronted Donald Trump about the label taco at the White House. He went ballistic at her, said it was a very mean and nasty question. It's in the back of his head. Taco. Donald Trump for 20 years has said Iran cannot get a weapon of mass destruction. The Israelis had done everything possible short of taking out Fordo for Donald Trump to get involved. He didn't want the taco label. The progressives giving Donald Trump the taco label, frankly, helped satisfy Donald Trump that he needed to act. He didn't want to look like he was chickening out. He's maintained for 20 years that Iran could not get a nuclear weapon. Go back to 2004. He was critical of the war effort in Iraq under Bush and maintained that the priorities were always wrong, that we needed to stop Iran, not Iraq. He didn't want to chicken out. Israel made it very easy for him to not have to. All this past week, he had been signaling something was coming. He left the G7. He signaled they needed to complete surrender. Something big was going to happen. And then he dropped the bombs. What the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times both say is that Trump struggles to keep a secret. And so a lot of diversions came about as a result of that. The Pentagon launched those B-2s to the west. They had already launched B-2s to the east, undetected, without transponders on. Nobody saw them take off. It was the ones to the west everybody saw. They were on the radar. Everybody paid attention to it. And they thought, there's no way they're going to reach Iran, it's going to take them at least 2 days to get there. They're going to refuel. They're going to go to Guam. They're probably going to go to Diego Garcia. They're going to station there. Meanwhile, the actual B-2s dropping the bombs were already over Iran, waiting for the order to drop the bombs. And when they came, Iran had no idea. It's marvelous. It was actually a very well thought out plan. Now, I want to say something. I said it the other day, and I want to say this somewhat humorously, although some of you will be offended because some of you are always offended. When I was in 8th grade, I had a teacher. Turns out he actually worked for the CIA. He was my math teacher, but he also worked for the CIA. And he one time said in class, we were just talking one day in algebra, and talking about life. And the teacher said, you know, a secret life, and this guy, by the way, you should know, has a reputation for being a gossip. He would gossip. He'd tell us all the stuff that was going on, all the problems with the teachers and other students and other classes. He was a fun teacher. And he said, never keep a secret. Never keep a secret. Because then, when you need to keep a secret, nobody thinks you're capable of keeping a secret. And it was advice that stuck with me. Never keep a secret. So that when you have to keep a secret, nobody thinks you're keeping a secret. We didn't know at the time. It turned out he actually was still involved with the Central Intelligence Agency. He and his wife both were involved in foreign intelligence. Donald Trump can't keep secrets. The only secrets Donald Trump has ever kept is when he was cheating on his wives. I say that humorously. You know it's true. Some of you want to get mad about me saying it, but come on. I mean, Donald Trump was very successful at philandering or behind his wife's back, and he got away with it until he got divorced and suddenly was exposed in these relationships. Donald Trump knows how to keep secrets. He just doesn't like to keep secrets. Donald Trump keeps the secrets that matter. Donald Trump kept the secrets while not keeping the secrets. He did a whole lot of bluster. He did a whole lot of, I'm giving them 2 weeks. They need to surrender. I'm giving them 2 weeks, unconditional surrender. I'm giving them 2 weeks. Something's going to happen. I'm giving them 2 weeks. They need to come back to the table. And all along the way, the administration was putting out the signal. Looks like they're coming to the table. Looks like they're negotiating. The Iranians meet up. We're like, we're not doing it. We're not doing anything. We're not going to negotiate. And the Trumps was, oh, they've come back to the table. Oh, they're willing to talk. The Iranians were like, what the hell are they talking about? We're not at the table. And the Trump administration is like, oh, look, they're in Geneva now talking to the Europeans. Everybody's discombobulated. What is he talking about? He says they're engaged. They don't appear to be engaged. Now maybe they are engaged. We don't know. Boom. It was masterful. It was masterful. Even the talking heads on Morning Joe are giving him credit for how masterful it was. The mass distractions. They're giving him begrudging credit. Now, the spin this morning, you should understand, is that, well, Iran had time to get its uranium out of there. Spy satellites show convoys leave Fordow last week. Convoys presumed to be carrying the uranium out of Fordow left last week. Do you really think the Israelis don't know where the convoys went? Do you really believe the same spy satellites that saw them leaving didn't see where they went? And even if they went, they couldn't put the centrifuges on the truck. Now, here's the more masterful part of this. And this is just me, and this part here is not so much news as speculation. I find it hard to believe the Israelis that put all of this thought into an operation wouldn't have thought of, they could pull trucks up and take the uranium out of there. I find it notable the Israelis did not blow up the roads to Fordow until after we dropped the bunker busters. Why do you think that is? They could have blown up the roads to Fordo before to keep the Iranians from pulling the uranium out of there. We know the uranium, that they couldn't bring the centrifuges with them. Why do you think the Israelis waited until after the bombing to blow up the roads so that the Iranians couldn't get back in? But they didn't blow up the roads beforehand, and the Iranians could get out with the uranium. I suspect they just watched where the Iranians were taking the uranium. Do the Iranians have other underground facilities we don't know about? Where is the uranium going? Where are they storing the uranium? I suspect the Israelis have been watching. I find it just absolutely incredulous, a ludicrous suggestion that the uranium's now gone. We don't know where the uranium is. This is the talking point to try to undermine Donald Trump today. Is yeah, it might have been successful, but they pulled the uranium out. We don't know where the uranium is now. I bet you the Israelis do. The fact that they didn't bomb the roads out of Fordo beforehand and allowed the Iranians to pull the uranium out on the convoys, I suspect they know. As I'm speaking right now, the Iranians are launching more missiles at Israel. The airspace has gone quiet over Qatar. We moved our military operations out of Qatar several days ago, so any bombs, missiles fired by Iran will land without us there. This was a good strike, and it's notable that even some Democrats are begrudgingly praising Donald Trump. This isn't a war. This isn't a long-term involvement. This isn't an invasion. This isn't a ground force. This isn't a major military operation other than bombs being dropped. We're not going to put boots on the ground. This isn't regime change. This is ending Iran's nuclear capacity, something that every president of the United States since the 1990s has pledged to do when it became obvious Iran wanted to build a bomb. And this is the first president to actually do anything about it. And we've had two Democratic presidents over the last 15 years or so who did everything they could to prop up Iran, fund Iran, give Iran money. Instead of dropping bombs on Iran, Barack Obama and Joe Biden were dropping pallets of cash. And Donald Trump has done what the rest of them said needed to happen: end Iran's nuclear abilities. And the fact that they are, the Democrats, moving the goalpost to what if we didn't get rid of the uranium? The uranium doesn't matter, the centrifuges do. And we've taken out the centrifuges. And that's a good thing. And Israel is now, today, bombing Iran not to harm their war-making capacity, but to undermine the regime. There's been a distinct change in the Israeli targets since those bombs fell the other night. They're now targeting communications facilities, internet systems, secret police systems and headquarters, the things the Iranian regime needs to stay in power. The Iranian regime fears the Iranian people and has put in place a lot of guns to keep the people at bay. That's what Israel is targeting now. And we will see where this goes. The president of the United States pulled off a spectacular attack in Iran, so much so that even MSNBC is having to give him some credit. That tells you just how well it went.